Hi, Scarlet Marvel here, and Latina Heritage Month is coming to an end, so it's the perfect time to dive into the history of Marvel's Latina superheroes. At this point, Marvel has some very recognizable Latina heroes, like Spider-Man and America Chavez, but that hasn't always been the case. In fact, Latina heroes were absent from Marvel Comics for quite some time, and once they did appear, they were forced into minor and often stereotyped roles. So how did these heroes go from non-existent to some of the company's most popular heroes? Join me to find out as I go over the full history of Marvel's Latina superheroes. But before we get started, I want to hear from you. So let me know who is your favorite of Marvel's Latina superheroes, and put it in the comments down below. Marvel began publishing comics in 1939, but it took 36 years until their first Latino superhero made his debut. Before then, Latinas mostly served as minor antagonists, although a few prominent Latino supervillains did appear, such as Tarantula from Spider-Man comics. These early depictions were full of racist stereotypes, made worse by the lack of heroic Latinas to counter the negative portrayals. This began to change in 1975, when Hector Ayala, aka the White Tiger, made his debut in Deadly Hands of Kung Fu number 19, as the first Latino superhero of not only Marvel, but in mainstream comics overall. The Puerto Rican hero was created by George Perez and Bill Mantlo, and was heavily inspired by Perez's childhood experiences in the South Bronx. White Tiger became the star of a solo feature in Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, until 1977's issue number 32. Becoming Marvel's first Latino superhero to star in his own comic feature. The martial arts hero received praise for his complexity and accuracy in representing the Puerto Rican diaspora of New York City. However, after his initial run in Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, White Tiger only made supporting appearances in other heroes' comics until 1981, at which point he disappeared from comics for over 2 decades. Marvel's only other Latina hero, introduced prior to 1980, was Ajax, a Peruvian warrior and member of the godlike Eternals, who made his debut in 1976's Eternals number 2. In the 1980s, Marvel continued to slowly introduce new Latina heroes. Most of these characters were minor, but a select few made their debuts as major supporting heroes. The most significant of these new heroes was Sunspot, the solar-powered Brazilian mutant who first appeared in 1982's Marvel graphic novel number 4. This story explored Sunspot's origin, emphasizing his Afro-Latinidad, and by the end of the comic, he became a founding member of the New Mutants, remaining with the team in their self-titled comic through the rest of the decade. Another Latino member of the New Mutants was the Mexican Earth manipulator, Richter, who made his debut in 1987's X-Factor number 17. Richter quickly appeared in several X-Men spin-off comics, becoming one of Marvel's most significant Latino heroes. In 1981's Incredible Hulk number 265, pyrokinetic Mexican hero Firebird became Marvel's first Latina heroine. Firebird is additionally noteworthy for being the first Latina hero to join the Avengers, and for being incredibly powerful, even being compared to gods like Thor. Firebird's success inspired the creation of several other Latina heroines, including Avengers ally Rita de Mara as Yellow Jacket, and Cuban anti-hero Poison. Other Latino heroes of the decade include Colombian demigod High Note and Rafael Vega, the Puerto Rican leader of Wolfpack. As Marvel Comics featured more stories with international settings, several minor Latin American heroes were also introduced, including Defensor from Argentina, and La Bandera from Cuba. This decade showed Marvel's willingness to expand their roster of Latina heroes, but they remained underrepresented and still suffered from common stereotypes. Despite this, Latina representation seemed to be moving in a positive direction. During the 1990s, Marvel dramatically ramped up comics production. This allowed the company to introduce a large number of new characters, including several Latina heroes. Most of these were minor characters that had little impact outside of the 90s, but the greatly increased number of Latina heroes compared to the previous decade was a welcome change. One of the most prominent new heroes was the electric-powered Living Lightning. He was introduced in 1990's Avengers West Coast number 63 and within a year, became the Avengers' second Latino member. Marvel's other big team, the X-Men, introduced several Latina heroes across their many spin-off books, including feline-like sisters Feral and Thorn, Puerto Rican mutant Skin, Cuban X-Force member Risque, and Puerto Rican doctor Cecilia Reyes, who became the X-Men's first official Latina member in 1997. Several other Marvel teams of the decade introduced Latina heroes, including Rigor Ruiz, the leader of Code Blue, mercenary Raul Quintino of Silver Sable's Wild Pack, demonic anti-hero Vengeance of the Midnight Suns, Dominican mercenary Perez of Marvel UK's Warheads, and New Warriors member Helix. Other new Latina heroes of the decade included Wonder Man ally Auteur, Spider-Man allies Nocturne and Machina, and Captain America ally Bantam. At this point, Marvel had a significant number of very minor Latina heroes, so rather than flesh out these characters, the company chose to kill off several of the Latin American heroes introduced during the 1980s for shock value as part of a controversial Captain America story in 1995. This decade also saw Marvel explore the multiverse, with the alternate future reality of 2099 that became the setting of several comics. The first, and most successful of these, was Spider-Man 2099, a 46-issue series that ran from 1992 to 1996, starring the half-Mexican hero, Miguel O'Hara, in the titular role. This made Miguel Marvel's first Latino hero to star in his own self-titled series. Miguel became incredibly popular for offering a fresh and futuristic take on the Spider-Man mythos. The X-Men 2099 comics also introduced Latina heroes, including anti-hero La Lunatica and mutant allies Breakdown and Rosa Navarro. After the comic crash of 1996, Marvel slowed down comic production significantly, meaning only a few Latina heroes were introduced during the late 90s. Avengers ally Silverclaw was introduced in 1998 as a shape-shifting hero from the fictional South American nation of Costa Verde. Black Panther ally Junta was introduced in 1999 and also hailed from a fictional South American nation, Volcán de Muyo. The last new Latina hero of the decade was Daredevil ally Maya Lopez, aka Echo. The 90s also featured Marvel's first big expansions outside of comics. But, with the exception of a couple cameos, Latina heroes were absent from Marvel's many animated series of the decade. As Marvel entered the 2000s, Latina heroes occupied more space in the Marvel universe than ever before. But they remained almost exclusively supporting characters, with shallow stories. During the 2000s, Marvel took steps towards rectifying this, with new Latina lead heroes and stories that explored Latinidad with more depth than ever before. Half Mexican, half Puerto Rican hero Anya Corazon, aka Araña, was introduced in 2004's Amazing Fantasy #1 as Marvel's newest spider-themed hero. She starred in Amazing Fantasy for 6 issues, before gaining her own 12-issue self-titled series in 2005, becoming Marvel's first Latina hero to star in her own series. However, she was not the only Latina to receive her own series during the decade. Hector Ayala as White Tiger made his return to comics in 2002's Daredevil #38, where he was wrongfully convicted for murder and killed off after just 3 issues in a cheap move that just served to further Daredevil's arc. To right this wrong, Marvel honored White Tiger's legacy with the introduction of Hector's niece, Angela del Toro, in 2004's Daredevil #58. Angela took up her uncle's mantle, becoming the new White Tiger, and starring in her own self-titled 6-issue series in 2007. Latina heroes also made their debuts through Marvel's various teams. X-Men comics introduced Angel Salvador, Wrath, Wind Dancer, Tag, and Darwin. Additionally, Sunspot officially joined the X-Men as their second Latino member. Mexican shapeshifter Reptile was introduced in 2009's one-shot comic, Avengers: The Initiative, featuring Reptile, before continuing to appear in Avengers spin-offs. Additionally, Silverclaw and Echo became new members of the Avengers. Other heroes introduced through Team Comics include Cyborg Victor Mancha from Runaways, a new tarantula from Heroes for Hire, and Speedster Slingshot from Secret Warriors. Other Latina heroes from the decade include Gabriel Vargas as Captain Universe, and Daredevil allies, Elegua and Chango. Marvel continued exploring the multiverse with the introduction of the Ultimate Marvel Universe as a way to modernize their stories. Ultimate Iron Man was introduced as a half-Latino hero named Antonio, rather than Anthony. Unfortunately, his Latinidad goes essentially unmentioned after the initial reveal. Still, Ultimate Iron Man received 2 5-issue series during this decade, making him the 3rd Latina hero to star in his own comic during the 2000s. Outside of comics, a small number of Latina heroes began to appear in Marvel's animated projects, but they remained absent from Marvel's expansion into movies. Sunspot was a supporting character in X-Men Evolution, and Reptile was one of the main characters of the Superhero Squad show. Although Marvel took some important steps towards improving Latina representation in the 2000s, they were minor in comparison to the changes made in the 2010s, as Marvel greatly increased their number of Latina lead heroes, and improved their stories to better reflect the diversity and complexity of the Latina diaspora. During this decade, Marvel focused on introducing young legacy heroes, with practically all of Marvel's most popular Latina heroes of the decade falling into this category. Afro-Dominican teen Victor Alvarez became the first of these legacy heroes when he made his debut as the new Power Man in 2010's Shadowland, Power Man #1, the first issue in his 4-issue series. The hero also starred in 2011's 5-issue team-up, Power Man and Iron Fist. The Ghost Rider mantle was passed down to 2 new Mexican heroes, Alejandra Jones and Robbie Reyes. Alejandra made her debut in 2011's first issue of her 9-issue solo series, but it was the 2014 debut of Robbie Reyes in all-new Ghost Rider #1 that had an even larger impact. Robbie was very well received by fans, allowing the character to star in 2 solo series. Sam Alexander made his debut as the new Nova in 2011's Marvel Point 1, and soon after became the star of his own solo series that continued for 49 issues across 3 volumes from 2013 to 2017. Nova's large exposure across his solo series and guest appearances allowed him to become one of Marvel's most popular new heroes. Puerto Rican multiversal traveler America Chavez, aka Miss America, made her debut in 2011's Vengeance #1, before starring in several teen comics throughout the decade. As one of Marvel's most powerful heroes, America became an incredibly popular character, allowing her to receive her own 12-issue solo series in 2017. All of these heroes enjoyed positive receptions, but Marvel's Ultimate Universe is where the decade's most impactful Latino hero was introduced. After the death of Ultimate Peter Parker, Puerto Rican teen Miles Morales became the new Ultimate Spider-Man in 2011's Ultimate Fallout #4. While his debut was initially met with controversy, Miles grew into an incredibly popular hero. Even the death of the Ultimate Marvel Universe couldn't stop Miles, as he made the transition over to the mainline universe, where his story has continued through constant solo series and team books. Aside from these new leading heroes, Anya Corazon, now going by Spider-Girl, Ultimate Iron Man, and Spider-Man 2099 also starred in their own solo series during the decade. Moving on to the supporting heroes of the decade. X-Men Comics introduced Mexican time manipulator Velocidad, Brazilian mutant Shark Girl, Sphere producer Goldballs, plant manipulator Flourish, and Wolverine ally Junk. Avengers Comics introduced Ava Ayala, the sister of Hector Ayala, as the newest White Tiger, and Inhuman hero Synax. Both of these heroes joined the Avengers as new Latina members, alongside Sunspot, Victor Mancha, Power Man, Nova, Spider-Man, and Ghost Rider. Sunspot became a particularly prominent Avenger, even leading his own spin-off team, US Avengers. Spider-Man and Nova used their experiences with the Avengers to co-found the young hero team, Champions. Other Latina heroes introduced through Marvel's team books include Colombian hero Toro of the Young Allies, Mexican telepath Hummingbird of the New Warriors, Colombian Inhuman Inferno, and Mexican hero Locust of the Champions. Other new supporting heroes included Roberta Mendez as Captain America of Marvel's 2099 universe, Mexican hero Joaquin Torres as the new Falcon, Mexican Deadpool ally Masacre, and Doctor Strange allies Medico Místico and Nina the Conjurer from Mexico and Brazil, respectively. Outside of comics, Latina heroes became more common in supporting roles, but were still mostly excluded from lead roles. Starting with animation, White Tiger, Nova, Spider-Man, and Spider-Girl all played significant roles in at least one animated series. As for live action, Fox's X-Men movies featured Angel Salvador, Darwin, Sunspot, and Richter in minor supporting roles. No Latina heroes appeared in the MCU's movies. However, several Latina actors did portray non-Latina characters, including Gamora, Valkyrie, and Nakia. The MCU's shows did better with Latina representation, by including Latina heroes such as Yo-Yo and Ghost Rider in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Claire Temple in Marvel's Netflix shows, and Molly Hayes Hernandez from Runaways. The only Latino hero to feature as the lead of a project during this decade was Miles Morales, who starred as the titular character in the critically acclaimed animated movie Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. We've reached the current decade, where Marvel's Latina heroes are bigger than ever before, with new heroes appearing and heroes of the past becoming more powerful and integral to the Marvel Universe. New heroes include Mexican Jake Gomez as the new Werewolf by Night, and Mexican magic students Germán Aguilar and Eva Quintero from Strange Academy. As for the heroes from past decades, Echo returned to the Avengers and gained the powers of the Phoenix. Goldballs changed his name to Egg after becoming an integral part of the X-Men's resurrection process. And Ghost Rider saved all the Avengers from throughout the multiverse. Despite the decade remaining young, several Latina heroes have already starred in their own series, including Werewolf by Night, America Chavez, Reptile, Echo, Spider-Man, Nova, and Spider-Man 2099. Latina heroes have also been highlighted in Marvel's Voices Comunidades one-shot comics, released to celebrate Latina Heritage Month in 2021 and 2022. The biggest advancements for Marvel's Latina representation have come from outside of comics, where Latina heroes are starring in movies and shows, in addition to commonly appearing as major supporting characters. Starting with shows, Moon Knight was reimagined as a half-Latino hero in his self-titled series, and other MCU shows introduced Joaquin Torres and Echo. Moving on to movies, Fox released New Mutants as their final X-Men movie, and featured whitewashed versions of Sunspot and Dr. Cecilia Reyes. The MCU introduced America Chavez in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and Ajak and Makari in Eternals. Additionally, Valkyrie, Gamora, and Nakia returned in the sequels of their previous appearances. The MCU's biggest step for Latina representation was Namor and Talocan in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Although Namor served as the film's antagonist, the character is an anti-hero who was reinvented alongside his nation of Talocan as descendants of Mayan people who escaped colonization by adapting to life in the ocean. This made for a powerful story that placed Talocan as a Latina parallel to Wakanda. By the end of the film, it became clear that Namor and Talocan would be very important to the MCU's future. While Namor has been the MCU's most impactful Latino character of the decade, it's Spider-Man who takes the prize as Marvel's most significant Latino hero of the decade overall, for starring in the critically acclaimed Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This film also introduced Spider-Man 2099 as an anti-hero figure that antagonizes Miles. Both Spider-Men will return in the film's sequel, Beyond the Spider-Verse. contributing to the bright future that Marvel's Latina heroes appear to be headed towards. Looking towards that future, Sunspot will star in X-Men 97. Anya Corazon is set to make her live-action debut in Madam Web, and El Muerto may become Marvel's first live-action Latino lead, although the film has been placed on hiatus. Overall, it seems Latina heroes will continue to increase their impact on Marvel's many future shows and films. Marvel's Latina heroes have come a long way after being practically non-existent in their first 4 decades, to now being amongst Marvel's most powerful and impactful heroes. Characters like Spider-Man, America Chavez, and Ghost Rider are incredibly popular, and others like Echo, Namor, and Sunspot are set to become big names as they continue to make more appearances in the MCU and beyond. Still, Marvel's Latina representation should continue to improve, as the Latina diaspora similarly continues to grow. We are an incredibly diverse community, and Marvel should strive to represent to the full extent of that diversity. I know I can't wait until Marvel introduces their first Ecuadorian superhero. Until then, I'll continue to support all of Marvel's amazing Latina heroes, following their stories across comics, shows, movies, and wherever they show up next. Thank you all for joining me for this video. It was a lot of fun to make. I really hope that you all enjoyed it too. Remember to let me know who your favorite Latina superhero is down in the comments below. And let me know, in general, anything that you'd like to let me know in the comments. I'm gonna be back to posting these videos. I know it's been a minute since I posted one. I'm gonna be focusing mostly on the history videos that seem to be what you all like the most. But as always, let me know if you want to see anything specific. I'll make sure to sprinkle in some reviews, tier lists, any other Marvelous content here and then. But otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me. Bye!